Friends, we are now witnessing 12th day of war between Russia and Ukraine, or we may say between Russia and a proxy war led by NATO and US. Before we start on the present situation, I would like to tell you what is the IMF role in this. IMF, which was created in 1944 by US, is investor friendly finance capital institution, and accordingly is anti-people in its entire manifestations. What does it mean, anti-people? It means wherever it moves, wherever it lends loan, so-called aid and help, the austerity will start. And the economic conditions not only leads to austerity, it also leads to changes in labor law. Like it demands, like in Ukraine, that you reduce the wages of the workers, cut down their wages. We saw that happening from 2004, 2014, more so after Maidan coup, and the present Zelensky government. Zelensky, overnight hero by the Western media world over. Actually, what was he doing? He was selling off all the national property, natural wealths, to European Union and USA. All the chemical and even nuclear reactors, industries were under the control of the USA and their monopolies. They were plundering the entire wealth at a very cheap rate. So IMF means the further encroachment into your independence, economically, politically. Economically also means the repay back if you do not have that kind of power. Like in Ukraine, then it demands to have control over your land, close to metropolitan cities or inside, natural wealths. So, leaving the IMF behind, but by the way, I would like to talk on Yanukovych, Ukrainian president before 2014. He was like Manmohan Singh or Congress government in India in 1990s. They were accepting the IMF, World Bank and other such institutions, terms and conditions to a certain extent. After that, they were not able to do so. Because of people's resistance, they could not take away all the facilities given to the people, which they had fought and won over decades. And therefore, there was a need to change the mindset of the people. And therefore, like in India, the fascist regime, in Ukraine, Nazis. That means you create a situation politically, socially, through media, through other ways, where a section of people, they are with you. They oppose the majority of the people because of created hatred against minorities, because of some religion, because of nationalism, whatever. And that situation was created in Ukraine, and wherein US and NATO were penetrating deeper inside. Well, leaving the IMF behind, after the Russian special military operation started, Ukraine approached IMF, and IMF has accepted huge amount of billions worth, much more than 2014, where it was 27 billion, unimaginable with terms and conditions. It was unexpected, not done. It was not doing so before. So you can see the nexus of not only US and NATO inside Ukraine, but also the nexus of IMF, Ukrainian oligarchs and others. Naturally, Russian oligarchs didn't like it. And they have the opportunity now to ruin whatever the NATO and US have been doing in its close vicinity on its border. Now, on the present situation, Israeli Prime Minister had a sudden visit in Moscow to meet Putin. Unannounced, and of course, what is the outcome is not known, but we can guess it. So, on telephone had French, German prime ministers, Indian or presidents, Indian prime minister is also likely to talk. All are persuading Putin that please stop this war. In the meantime, US President Biden has been talking to Zelensky. Zelensky was on ninth cloud after the war broke out and he became hero. That he says he will not withdraw and he will fight till his last. And now he says that he has been cheated by USA and NATO. His demands have been turned down for no-fly zone over Ukraine. His demands for fighter planes has been almost turned down. Though there is some news that some Polish fighters have been seen in western Ukraine. So what is happening? The NATO and West has come to a wall where they can't penetrate. They have realized their limits and they are on defensive now. Think over it. These all requests, demands to Russia, to Putin, is that they are on defensive mode now, despite all the economic sanctions. All over the world, the masses that is rising except few places against Russian aggression and upholding NATO as savior of democracy and peace. Well, that happens. Earlier it used to be other way, but still NATO realized, USA realized its limits and they want to save whatever left in Ukraine, western Ukraine, so that Russian army does not penetrate there, does not enter there and does not see the borders of Poland, Romania. Let us see. You see the tilt. This is happening in last 2 days. And of course, Putin is firm on his demand that Ukraine must accept the terms and conditions laid down by Russia and the task of special military force must be accomplished. Denazification, end of Azov battalion, NATO's further eastward movements. Well, this is to be seen in next or this coming week itself. I mean, in this week, it has started today. Somewhere other way, the final thing will come up, fall. In the meantime, the other news is that Biden has agreed to give $10 billion help to Ukraine. Now, if Ukraine falls, where does this help go? That's another question that has to be seen. Even the Turkish Prime Minister had a talk with Putin. In the meantime, the claim by Ukraine is, I mean, if that is really true, is devastating for Russia. Though it does not stop Russian military onwards movement. That is, they have killed more than 11,000 Russian soldiers. Approximately 300 tanks and 44 fighter planes. That's massive. That's not small. That yet to be seen. What is the outcome of that? Of course, the peace talk and peace corridor in Eastern or Southeastern Europe, Ukraine, is almost over. Zelensky blames Putin, Putin blames Zelensky, that's continuing. And the world over in the meantime, like in India, Sensex is down by 1400 and crude oil has jumped more than $130 per barrel. UNO claims 1.5 million refugees have crossed Ukraine. It is a catastrophe, human catastrophe. Vinnytsia airfield almost in western Ukraine has been bombed through missiles and rockets and destroyed by Russian military. This gives some indication that there was probably some military intelligence to Russians that through this civil airport, the war materials are arriving from West, from NATO and other this thing, and they destroyed it. I mean, it is my guess, but it's not a wild guess. And entry into this region means that after consolidating their bases in Donbass, Mariupol and Kiev of course is still holding. But even if Kiev does not fall, the Russian military may turn towards west. No one stops them. It's all open. It's a vast land. And then that means Lviv and rest of the western Ukraine, if NATO, whatever bits and pieces, news coming, they are trying to come in Western Europe, they had it. Not because the Russian military combined will be more powerful than US and NATO military combined. There is a third factor, nuclear warfare. And all the other warfares like information warfare, psychological warfare, cyber warfare, economic sanction, each and everything have failed. And in final analysis, the USA, NATO, European Union and their allies, that includes Israel, they are on defense now. They want to hold their land wherever possible, whatever they have in Ukraine and elsewhere. Because this loss will be huge to them, not only on ground, but even economically. They are already losing millions or billions worth every day. It's not only Russia bleeding economically, but they too. And finally, before I close, friends, we must think the world, the human race, the climate is facing extreme precarious condition. And for what? To meet the need of capital, finance capital, monopoly, which needs accumulation and concentration of production and capital. It cannot stop. If it stops, it degenerates. In whichever form it comes, neoliberalism, war industries, fascism, Nazism, either this side or that side. It is not stagnant. It cannot be. It needs hegemony world over. Whether it's multipolar, bipolar, or single polar, which they want, it doesn't look like. What do you think? It's all the game of private property, not your personal belongings. From your underwear to your cars to your bungalow. No, those are your personal belongings. Private property is different, which has ability and does hire the labor power and exploits and grows. And that's it, friend. My final conclusion that West is weakening. Thank you.